Laura, no, Catherine posted these hamstring stretches videos on the website, but I don't know how many a day we should do. Like how are we supposed to sequence it?
Yeah, so I think it's good to give yourself some recovery days if you're doing some hamstring flexibility work using load. Every second day is good, Celine, so you're not doing it every day. Give yourself some days to recover as well in between. So maybe like Monday, Wednesday, Friday would be good.
We do all those if you suggest like Monday, every in that.
Yeah, okay. Absolutely, because you'll be doing it in pyramid, you'll be doing it in a wide standing pose, and then maybe also do the seated ones as well. So yeah, go for it. And then just see how you go. See how you go. Natalie, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I was gifted a yoga wheel, but I have no idea how to use it.
Be careful. And I don't know if it's,
yeah.
I also have one. I've also bailed off it really hard. So be careful with it because they're quite narrow. So sometimes it's quite easy to top off if you're like holding plank on it. It's quite nice to build strength and working towards like little handstands on it. It feels really nice to do some back bends. Just be careful that you don't fall and hurt yourself because they are quite unstable. And then maybe just check out some exercises and see how you go. Look on Google. Mostly, there's nothing really that's going to be building tons of strength unless you do plank with your feet on it. And then the rest of the stuff is just lying over and back bends over it, which can feel nice if you like back bends, but just proceed with caution.
Like a stretching tool.
Yeah. But you might find some cool stuff. Have a look. Explore.
Okay, cool.
Okay, so just don't fall off.
I won't. I didn't know if it was like a controversial thing or something. But
no, I mean, every prop has its place, and this is kind of a new yoga prop, and I think it's just kind of fun to play with.
Okay, cool. I think because it's new, I haven't really encountered it, so I'll just
exactly. I think it's new, and it's not quite as beneficial as other props in yoga, like chairs and blocks and straps. We can do a whole lot with. But you never know. Play with it, Natalie, and get back to us.
Okay, cool. I will.
Len, do you have a question?
Well, Laura, because I've got a bit of an elbow injury, and some days I'm good and some days I'm mad. I'm just, I don't, at the risk of sounding negative, and I don't want to sound negative, but I just feel really, 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 really fearful of all the inversions. And then, if we've got to do those poses, I just feel like I might never get there.
So Lynn, that's a completely normal feeling to have. First, just working with fear is totally a valid fear to have because it is scary. Secondly, building the strength is the main purpose in those poses. So like you've been doing your planks with your feet up the wall, and your kind of headless headstands with feet on the wall. That's all I expect from you. And that is perfect. Also, when you're working with an injury, your body doesn't want to push into things like that or with a niggle. And I think you just have to listen to that and take it slow and build the strength. And what you're doing now is totally fine. I'm always going to show you what lies ahead, like we did today. Sure. And of course, sometimes it's going to be super daunting. If you're not ready to go there yet, but everything you're doing now is perfect for your assessment and for this course, and you're building strength, which is the main benefit. So don't worry about it.
Okay, so the Asana reviews where it says inversions, headless headstand and handstand, I just have to go as far as I can go, basically.
Absolutely, because it's a process. Okay. Those poses, it's a process that's getting strong. And, sometimes people have already been doing this and they do gymnastics, and for them, it's super easy. And maybe for you, it's something you still got to build strength in, and that's perfect, Lynn.
Okay, thank you.
Feet on the wall. You've got a whole spectrum of stuff to work with there. Okay. And Belinda?
Sure, just a question. Whenever we do inversions in a yoga class, some instructors actually ask you to do fish off. I noticed that it's not with the inversions. It's the
What
fish
did you
position.
say, Belinda, to do which pose?
So once we've done an inversion, we're often asked to do a fish afterwards.
Oh, fish pose going
Fish
into
pose.
extension.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to discuss all of that tonight, actually. So often fish pose is done after shoulder balance. So we're going to be discussing shoulder balance and the reasons why. Maybe it's not for everyone. Maybe it's a bit of a non-beneficial pose for a lot of us. It's not really building a lot of strength. So we're going to have a lot of discussion around the neck and the fish pose and all of that, Belinda. So I think your question will be answered there. Okay, so have you all seen before maybe a shoulder balance or done a shoulder balance in a yoga class?
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to be discussing halasana and shoulder balance on page 149. If we start, and we're going to kind of do them together because they link together. And tonight might be more of a discussion. Maybe you want to try. But it's not always the pose that we advise you do. So what are your feelings now that we've spoken a little bit more around your neck being a very mobile part of the spine, but maybe not the most stable part of the spine? We don't put weight on our head when we do headstand. We do headless headstand. So what are your feelings around load and your neck when it comes to poses like shoulder balance? Let's just open it up as a discussion. Who doesn't like shoulder balance? Micah, Candy, Nicole, Celine. So how do you feel in shoulder balance? Why don't you like the pose? Maybe we can start with you, Micah, and then we'll come to you, Nicole.
I feel my biggest issue is that my shoulders are super tight. I noticed that a lot in back bends and also in shoulder stands. So it's super hard to especially get my feet close to my head.
And it's a really important point Micah's just brought out there with her shoulders. Because if you cannot get your shoulders and your arms into the ideal position, shoulder balance is not a good pose. Okay, so we'll discuss that a lot, Micah. I'm so glad you brought that up. Nicole L.
Mine is the same. I feel just really tight in here. It feels like a lot of pressure when I put weight on it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Load on them.
It's a really tough position that we want to get our shoulders into. And just on the other side, before I dive in, who really likes shoulder balance and why do you like it? So Z, you really like it. Mika, you like it. So Z, you want to tell us why?
Actually, the first time I was introduced to it wasn't actually in yoga. As part of a high intensity training, so when you do like a full abdominal exercise, they encourage you to kind of bring your legs far back, and then when you extend it back, you kind of bring your legs all the way, so you're getting like a full use of your abs. And I once went to a Pilates class, and they used it in Pilates, but like one leg at a time type of thing, to build some core strength. Then obviously like I eventually got to it in a yoga class, and I thought it was quite fun. Like your feet, your legs are in the air, and like I don't know, I really enjoy it. It makes me stronger because obviously I don't feel very comfortable on my arms, so the shoulder part is a little bit, even when you're on your forearms, like trying to do a handstand, for example. So that's why I like it, because it makes me feel a bit more confident that I can do some of the inversions.
So there's a great point you brought up there, because we can bring in core in poses where your legs are more overhead without necessarily putting too much weight on your neck. So there are ways that we can use the shapes of plow, halasana, and the shapes of kind of shoulder balancing poses without the risk in the neck. So there's different ways of doing these poses. And Mika, you want to jump in here why you like shoulder balance?
I actually also started enjoying it with reverse crunches when you're coming up as well and coming down. So it's quite similar. But yeah, I quite like being in that position. I feel it's very relaxing as well. It's a lot more, it's the handstand, but with a more relaxing factor to it. So it's not so strenuous for me. I just like, it feels good for my back and my neck, just being in that position as well. It feels good.
Okay, so that's also a great point. I'm glad you brought up, because it gives a really big stretch along your back, right? And that's often why everyone loves shoulder balance and halasana, because they get this really good stretch. Okay, so I'm not dismissing the pose entirely. I'm just going to bring up the risks involved, okay, about having your neck like this, bent at a 90-degree angle, and then your weight, your entire weight of your body on that position, okay? Because it's called shoulder balance. We're supposed to be on our shoulders and not our necks, okay? So we'll discuss that. Candy?
That was actually why I didn't like it, was because it's so constricting, and then I always felt like my boobs were like on my face.
Yes.
So that was like hectic for me. So then, you're kind of going, oh, I can't breathe.
You almost feel suffocated.
Yeah, it was like I needed a snorkel.
So that is a huge factor. You're so right, Candy. And a lot of women are totally uncomfortable because of that reason. So there's a lot of factors around this pose, okay? And we'll hopefully touch on all those elements along the way. Okay, so the biggest thing here is we don't want to have weight on our neck, okay? Just as we don't throw our heads back when we do back bends, and also how we don't put our weight on our head when we do headstand, right? Because we want to be using other parts of the body to be taking the load and not your neck, okay? But in order to not have weight on your neck, we need to be balanced on the shoulders. Okay, so what are the instructions you normally hear when going into shoulder balance to do with your arms? What are we doing with our hands? So let's all do this now, because this is the main thing we want to touch on. Okay, so in shoulder balance, we roll the legs over. We try and tuck our shoulders underneath us like this, right? Like we do in bridge pose. So remember, what are the cues I've given you in bridge about the tucking of your shoulders underneath you, what not to do, and what to do with your shoulders when you bind?
Jamming your neck. Press.
So, yeah?
Press down.
Don't jam your neck.
So when we go into bridge pose, we don't want to do this, right? And yank our arms down and then feel like you're jamming your chin into your chest, right? What were the cues that were maybe preferable to do with your shoulders?
Press your shoulders down.
Correct. And pressing your shoulders rather into the mat than drawing them down, yes? And rolling off to one side, tucking the shoulder, rolling off to the other side, tucking the shoulder. Okay, so it's very similar in shoulder balance. Okay, now to find the correct positioning that we have weight on our shoulders and not our neck, we need to be able to place our hands in line with the ribs like this, like you do in shoulder balance, okay? And you need enough shoulder mobility. So this is where it comes in, those of you like Micah saying, your shoulders feel very tight, okay? You need to be able to place your hands like this and bring your shoulder blades together and your upper arms together. Now face your little camera screen so we can all assess this on each other, okay? If your elbows are pointing a little bit out, so then turn to face the screen if you can, face on, it's going to be very tricky for you to be able to tuck and put the weight on your shoulders. So 90% of people might struggle with this. So take your hands, place them on your ribs, then Z, face towards me, so turn your chest to me, and let's all have a look. Who is able to squeeze their elbows back that we can't even see your elbows? Can you feel that big stretch? So look at Desi, she's shaking her head, no. So Renee's the same, Micah, this is the same, and this is why you feel that in shoulder balance, okay? And then look at Chloe, we can hardly see her elbows, so maybe Chloe would be able to really get onto the tops of her shoulders. and Cinchi and Jamie, we know the flexi shoulder girls. Belinda, we can see your elbows a little bit still sticking out. Bev a little bit. Celine's being attacked by her dog, so we can't see. Natalie, maybe. Okay, so generally looking at each other, looking at yourself, for a lot of us, our elbows are sticking out. So what does this mean? If your elbows are sticking out, what does that translate to in shoulder balance?
Not on your shoulders.
Correct, Belinda. You then are going to struggle to get into the ideal positioning to tuck your shoulders underneath you, to have no weight on your neck, but all the weight going through your shoulders. Okay, so that's a lot of us, right? Not all of us have super flexy shoulders to be able to get into a safe way of doing shoulder balance. Okay, so this is why it's not an advised pose that you teach just in a general class just for the sake of doing it. Okay, why would you teach this pose? What are the benefits? Why would you do it? There isn't really any, right? So if we think about headstand, handstand, forearm stand, all those poses are building a lot of strength in our shoulders and arms, right? This one, you might be getting a bit of a stretch in your shoulders, but you kind of already need to have that stretch in order to do it safely, okay? There are safer inversions, like just putting your legs up the wall to have a more restful inversions, then potentially putting your students' necks in a vulnerable position. Okay, so you have to question these things. What if someone walks up with a really sore neck after your class? Because we taught shoulder balance and their shoulders are really tight. So all their weight went onto their neck. And say now, like most people, they spend their whole day sitting behind a desk and their neck is like this. Feel it in your own body. Maybe you do also spend a lot of time behind. So your neck is doing what here?
Scrunching.
Scrunching, right? Your neck is scrunching. Now, what do we do in shoulder balance?
Scrunching.
Now we're doing the opposite. You're almost bending your neck to almost like a 90-degree angle. Feel the difference. It's quite extreme, right? Quite an extreme difference. Bend your neck down. So look towards your belly button. Feel how you're stretching the back of your neck. Can you feel it's quite strong? And now put all your body weight on that. Whoa. It's a little bit extreme, right? Especially for people who don't normally move into positions like that. Okay? So these are all things we have to take into account. All right. Any questions just on talking about risks of neck and ideal shoulder positioning for shoulder balance? Kirsten?
I don't know, in the classes I go to, it's quite often that they actually ask us to go into that position. What would you advise doing instead of it? Just staying in bridge pose, or I don't know, what kind of class?
I'm so glad you brought that up, Kirsten, because I'm not sure about where you guys are, but in Cape Town, and it's kind of been changing a bit, here in Cape Town, at the end of every yoga class, they do shoulder balance, and then, as Belinda was talking about, then fish pose. Okay. And for no particular reason at all. It's just because other people have done it. You know what I mean? It's not as because it's their peak pose and you've worked towards it. It's just like, okay, before Shavasana, balance on your neck. A lot of people feel really uncomfortable. Yeah, so I'm glad you brought that up. It's often just said, okay, now go into shoulder balance. And then bring your knees to your ears, which is a really extreme pose. Without really much benefit or really thinking about why we're doing it. So as alternative poses, yes, you could do bridge. Depending where you were, it would be nice if someone gave you the option to do another inversion like headless headstand or a handstand if there were walls and you felt safe and it wasn't too disruptive. I'm also going to show you a safer way of doing plow and of doing shoulder balance with support. If you're one of the people that can get your shoulders into a fairly safe position or a fairly ideal position, then maybe you can explore it. How did your elbows feel there in there, Kirsten? Was it a pose you like to do or want to do?
It's not a pose I like to do at all. I don't know.
Yeah. So then don't do it, because there's no benefit to it, and it often just feels horrible. So it's kind of one of those terrible poses. But I need to teach you how to potentially do it safer if it's something you're interested in doing, or when you're faced in this position like Kirsten's in. I mean, for me, I don't ever do it in those classes if I don't have support, which I'm going to show you how to do it with support. Now, I'd rather push up into like a full wheel pose or whole bridge, or put your legs up the wall, which is what we're going to end off with this evening, which counts as an inversion. So legs up the wall is a great alternative and a really nice pose, and a passive inversion. That answer your question in a very roundabout way.
It did, yes. Thank
you. So what we're going to talk about now, you can see I've got some blankets here on my mat, and you'll also see it in your manual. What we're doing now is we're raising the shoulders up a little bit, okay? So what the blanket is going to help with here, and I'll give you a chance if you want to try and run off and get blankets in a little bit, but I'll show you first. You also don't have to do it if it's a horrible pose you hate. Rather just understand how to do it safely. So what the blanket is going to do, instead of having my neck forced at this kind of 90-degree position and flattening the curve of my neck, which is what we don't want, which is why I cue in bridge to keep your gaze up to the ceiling. You don't want this back of your neck to be flat on the floor. Our neck has that curve for a reason, especially if we're putting load on it, okay? That's the problem. So the blanket is going to help me to maintain the natural curve of my neck, okay? And the blanket is going to also help me, hopefully, to, and it depends again on your shoulders, to try and be more on my shoulders and less on my neck. Okay, so I will show you first. This can make shoulder balance a little bit safer. Okay, you still don't have to do it. You still don't have to teach it. It's not a pose I ever teach, unless it's to you guys to talk about all these things. Okay, so if it's something you still want to do, I recommend trying it on a support. So you can see I've got two blankets here. So it's raised up about 2 centimeters or so. I'm going to lie back over my blankets. And I'm going to count for rolling over. So if you can see here, I've got about like a 4-finger gap from my edge of my shoulder to the edge of the blanket. Can you see that? So I'm not right on the edge of the blanket, I'm in a little bit. Okay. Then from here, that's going to help me to keep, if there was a light shining through, it would maintain this curve of my neck. Can you see that? Rather than having my neck flat and my chin squished in towards my chest. It's keeping my neck more in a natural curve. Okay. Then from here, if I'm moving into shoulder balance, we offer enter through plow pose, halasana, to give the shoulders that opportunity to tuck underneath and to bring the elbows in, if they can. All right, like you all saw in each other. So I'm going to take my legs up. One option is to use a wall, especially if your hamstrings are a bit tight and you can't touch your feet on the floor. A wall is quite nice. I can interlace my fingers, tuck one shoulder under, other shoulder under. I could also do that with my feet on the floor. So here, I'm trying to tuck my shoulders underneath me. So now I've got more weight on my shoulders, and I should be able to speak to you clearly because there's no weight on my neck. I'm pushing down through my shoulders, and my weight is on the top of my shoulders. And then place my hands onto the back of my ribs, and I bring my legs up. So firstly here, instead of having all your weight forwards and trying to get really straight and scrunch your neck, take your weight back. Can you see how I shifted? I've placed more weight back into my elbows. And that helps a lot for shifting your weight more into the arm side rather than having all your weight on the neck. Another useful tip, which I remembered only once I was down there, is to fold your sticky mat so that your elbows don't slide out. Okay. So last time, I've got a little gap. So my shoulders have space to roll onto my little support. Roll the legs over either onto the wall or onto the floor. Interlace fingers to tuck shoulders underneath. We need to try and get the ideal position for those arms. Now, instead of trying to be upright vertical, shift your weight back. It's going to work your core more. Can you see how my weight is more in my elbows and less so on my neck doing this? This is what you don't want. Can you see how my neck is flattened? Weight back into the elbows, legs up. Okay. I want to just talk here about halasana. Instead of trying to get your feet to the floor, have your weight back a bit. Can you see again how I've rolled back? There's more weight now on my ribs and my shoulder blades than being here and scrunching my neck. Okay, so curl back to free your neck and have the weight more on your upper back and your shoulders than too far over is also a really helpful tip. And then even here, I can move into a shape of a shoulder balance. Can you see how all the weight is in my arms now? I can even turn my head because I've got no weight on it at all, but don't. And now my arms are doing all the work. So the main message is there, have your weight further back. Don't put more weight to the head side. Keep your weight more towards the arm side, okay? If you're going to do shapes like halasana, plow pose, and you still want to get that stretch on your back that everybody loves so much, you can, but have your weight further back. Be more rounded. So the weight is on your shoulder blades and upper back and ribs, rather than trying to get your feet too far over and weight on your neck. So what are your thoughts? Any questions?
That makes more sense.
Does it make more sense?
Yeah.
I still don't think it's a great pose because it's kind of like, it's not building strength. I felt a bit of a stretch in my back, but I can do that by just folding forwards. Z, if you want to work your core, you can still do that halasana, but just don't put all the weight on your neck. Keep the weight on your shoulder blades and your upper back. There's also one more version that's very core orientated. Maybe Z can show us, because I hate these kind of poses. Z, do you mind?
The pressure. Actually,
you don't have to. I'll do it if you want.
Well, I'll tell you, it makes sense why I have a lot of neck pain, because I tend to, well, up until we did headless headstands, because I kind of learned that a lot. I have so much confidence in it, and I'm trying to learn the little wavy legs. So I get excited about that, and it's very addictive. And I always tend to do that, and then afterwards, when I'm down, I'll do like the plow, but I obviously, because my hamstrings are so tight behind me, so I won't go all the way to the ground. It's just until the block. And
so
then,
Z, can I pause you there?
So that I'm not scrunching.
So tight hamstrings almost make it worse, because for Z to try and put her feet on the floor, if that was her motivation, I know you use the block, but because her hamstrings are tighter, she's going to have more weight on her neck trying to get her feet onto the floor rather than back. Okay, now I'll show you. I can see Z's not jumping at the chance. So what you can also do is an unsupported shoulder balance. So it means supported when your hands are like this. Unsupported, I don't demo it very well because I prefer back bending. My back prefers back bending. So I'm going to be here. I've curled my weight back onto my shoulders. Can you see that? And then I can extend my arms up, and all the weight is on my upper back and not my neck. And it works really strongly as a core pose. You can also do, this is also in your manual, Supta Konasana. I've curled all my weight back onto my back ribs. My neck is totally free. And sometimes we use it as a prep for Titibhasana. Yeah, because my weight is back. I'm trying to round my back. Because you can see my back doesn't round very much. So that I can still work the core in unsupported shoulder balance or Supta Konasana, that prep for Titibhasana, with all the weight on my back and not on my neck. Does that make sense? Would anyone like to try? If you would, I'll give you a second to go grab 2 blankets. Try and get 2 fairly firm blankets so that when you fold it, it's not too squishy, because that would kind of defeat the point. I'll give you a few minutes.
You can do it.
If you don't want to do it and you just want to watch, that's also okay. Candy, you might prefer it now with your weight further back. It may feel less smothering, but I can't guarantee anything. It's a huge factor, but having weight back a bit may help. So
I'm actually quite excited to try it now that I feel like there's a much better option.
Exactly.
So now I'm actually, okay, cool, I'll try it.
I mean, it's something I never do in my own practice. It's something I never teach because it's not doing anything for me. But sometimes if I'm teaching something like Titibhasana and I want to get the rounding in the back, I'll teach it with like almost the low back on the floor. I can't demonstrate that very well. That's why I was hoping Z would. Okay, guys, before you run off, okay, let's just make sure your blanket support is neatly folded. This is where I'm going to get very fussy, okay? And the folded edge, so that neat, crisp fold must be where your neck is going, not the loose end where it's all messy, okay? The folds of your blanket are where you will place your shoulders. Has anyone ever tried Iyengar yoga?
Yeah.
Where they use all the props? I was
Yes.
Iyengar trained for many years. I'm very fussy about these props. You're lucky I'm not in your room with you because I'd be pedantic. Okay, your blanket needs to be quite folded, so it's about a 2 centimeter height. Okay, and neatly folded so there's no like horrible ripples in it. Okay, then like you saw, you need to fold your mat so that your mat is sticking over your blanket. So if you're not sure, have a look again. Okay, so I've got my 2 blankets with the neat folded crispy edge where my head is gonna go. And then you're gonna fold your mat and just leave a little bit of a gap. So here's where your shoulders will go, but your elbows will be on the sticky mat so that your elbows don't slip out, like when you have sleeves and do headstands. Okay, then don't rush into it. Let me check. I'm getting all control freaky on you now. That's it, Lynn, but now shuffle your head back a little bit more, Lynn. A little bit more back, Lynn. Shuffle your head back, yeah. If you place your hand on your, above your shoulder, it's about 4 fingers from the edge. Yes, if your hand was side on, yeah. Okay. That's being really fussy. But it makes a difference because if you're right on the edge, then it serves no purpose. If you're too far in, it sometimes scrunches your neck more. So it's quite something you have to get right. Okay. Now remember, try not have weights on your neck. Mika, also don't turn your head. Try and look straight up. Even though your weight is on your elbows, I can see. Try not to turn your head. Straighten legs up towards the ceiling. You also don't have to do this pose, especially if your neck doesn't like it. I wouldn't if I were you. I hate it. Okay, roll your legs up. Maybe you pop your feet on the wall like you saw me do, which is quite cool. Or you bring your feet towards the floor. They don't have to touch the floor. Now your hand, now curl backwards. Just even here, curl back towards your elbow side. Curl back, curl your bum back. Can you feel like that, how you're taking your weight back and off your neck? That has just made it 1,000,000 times safer. Curl back, curl back, curl back. Already here, you should be able to breathe easier. Your neck should feel comfortable. You're not turning blue in the face. Yeah? Okay, so that is where you kind of want to have your weight. You can stay here if you want, if this is enough. This is where you can still get that stretch in your back everybody likes. And if you curl down now slowly like this, without your hands, let's just curl down slowly. Can you feel your core is working? So you can use this to work that rounding and this stretch on your back without any weight on your neck. Celine, you've got it all wrong there, love. Come off. Your head must be off the blankets, not on the blankets. Turn around. Sit your bum on your blankets and head off your blankets. Okay, if you want to go again, cool. You can do that same thing, curling down, working the stretch with no weight on your neck. Okay. If you want to this time interlace your fingers, slowly tuck one shoulder underneath. So you have to rock off to one side, tuck. Rock off to the other side, tuck. And then tuck, 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 tuck. The more you get those shoulders underneath you, the better. And you know for some of us, that's really tough. Okay. Then place your hands on your lower back or your ribs. Shift your weight back in your elbows now. So rock your weight back into your elbows. Can you feel the weights in your elbows? Now maybe take your legs up towards the ceiling. You should breathe easily. You can bring your legs straight up towards the ceiling. Gary, more weight back in your elbows. Shift your weight back. Yes, you'll feel your abdominals are working a bit more now. And it's taken weight off your neck. Okay, it might not still be an ideal position for you. Okay. But at least it's no weight on your neck. Your weight is more on your arms. Can you feel the difference? Okay. Now take your feet back towards the floor over your head and see if you can straighten your arms up towards the ceiling. So you'll have to untuck your shoulders and round your back. Curl back so you're more towards your ribs like Candy's doing there. Yes, straighten your arms up. Curl back and round your back. That's it, Natalie. Now straighten your legs up towards the ceiling. Keep your back rounded. You're going to feel your core is working big time. This is shoulder balance unsupported. And it's almost good because you don't have your hands to force your weight onto your neck. Then you can take your legs wide out to the sides and do like a lying down Titibasana. Curl your bum back so your bum is almost hovering just off the floor. But you're still hovering. That's it, Gary. Yes. Hold it there. Hold it there. All the weight is on your back. You're still rounding. And then maybe straighten your arms through your legs, like you're doing Titibasana, fly, fly, lying down. Candy, curl back more. Curl your bum back towards the mat. Yes, like that. So your legs are almost parallel to the floor. That's it, Candy. That's it, Nicole. Yes, Wendy. Curl your bum back more, Wendy. Bum back towards the floor. Okay. See, can you feel here? You can still get all your core stuff, but your weight is much further back and not on your neck. Is safer. How did that feel? If you're still exploring those shapes, please feel free to stay there. The more you round, the more you're going to work your core. Weight back on your elbows is what you want to feel, and not weight over towards your neck side, weight back the other way. Can you feel, how did it feel with the blanket support? Was it easier to keep your neck in a little bit more of a comfortable position?
Laura?
So, and then we'll come to you, Lynn. Yeah, Roxy?
So this is one of my favorite poses, and also just because I feel like it gives my back a lot of relief, especially for my lower back. So I always do this. But I found with the blankets, with the extra support, it actually hurt my neck. Yeah. And my neck has never hurt. Yeah.
So Roxy, as I say, it's hard for me to see you at this moment. You really need to get the blanket support into the correct place. So maybe it was just off slightly. So don't dismiss it entirely. You might just have to check that you weren't too far off the edge of the blanket or too deep into the blanket. But about 4 fingers, about 2 centimeters off the edge from your shoulder. Okay.
Yeah, that's sort of where it was. But I don't know, maybe my blanket was also too thick. Yeah. But I'll play around with it. But it was just interesting because I've never felt.
Yeah.
the
So
neck
absolutely, it's going to
before.
feel a little different, and you need to just work with that it's not too uncomfortable. And maybe for you, Roxy, because your shoulders can go back a little bit more, maybe flat is okay for you. I don't know, we'll have to see. But have your weight further back. Could you feel the weight backwards at least in that pose?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Which makes it a bit safer. I mean, it's not something we tell you to go out and teach ever, because most people can't get their shoulders tucked, and I'm sure a lot of you couldn't either, to get your arms in the correct position to get that ideal positioning for your weight to be on your shoulders. But for you, because we always know some of you guys love this pose and want to keep doing it for yourself, that's why I want to show you how you can do it safer. So try again with the blanket, Roxy. Normally, firm blankets work better. Squishy blankets, not so much. Not too high as well. And then a lot of the times if we're meeting in the studio, I mean, we also have little foam cushions, and those also can work quite well. So it's a bit finicky. It's very finicky working with the blankets, but sometimes it offers that relief that we need.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thanks. I'll try. Maybe my blanket was too thick, I think.
Give it a go.
Yeah. Thank you.
Who else had a question there? I forgot now. More comment. Who else felt difference having the blanket support? Did it create any relief for you? Did it feel easier, better, worse?
I think for me, because I'm so used to doing it possibly the incorrect way, that the correct way feels uncomfortable.
And it's an uncomfortable pose. It can be, the main thing is try not have weight on your neck. Try not shove your chin into your chest and then put all your body weight on it. And then after doing something extreme with your neck like this, try not go into something like fish pose, okay? Where you drop your head back. Again, we'll talk about fish pose when we do additional poses. You just want to do extreme things with your spine. Like we wouldn't do a massive forward bend class and then end off in a huge back bend, right? That's the same reason why we don't want to do shoulder balance, extreme neck flexion, and then fish pose, extreme neck extension. It's just a crazy combo. And I think a lot of people are moving away from teaching like that. I know things are changing up here, but for a long time, it was like the standard way to end any vinyasa class. Not anymore. Okay. Any other questions around shoulder bands? Could you feel your weight being further back, maybe on your elbows in that pose? Okay. And then also when you did the other versions, like with your legs straight and the unsupported version, how you can do some really cool rounded shapes in your back. If you were teaching arm balances like Titibhasana, how did the supine Titibhasana feel for those that went there?
I found that one quite hard.
It is quite hard because it works your tummy.
Yeah, exactly. I was falling all over the place.
It is a little bit tricky as well. Nicole?
For me, Laura, when I tried the Titibhasana lying down, again, I felt that stiffness. But before trying it, I felt more relief in the neck just using the blanket. Yeah. But as soon as I tried to, it was like, oh my God, what is happening here?
Those are very hard shapes to be comfortable in for your shoulders. For me, they're very uncomfortable. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. But sometimes shapes like this serve a purpose, like when we're doing our intelligent sequencing, and you've maybe taken a pose like Titibhasana, we found all sorts of shapes and places to feel it, right? We can do it standing with our legs wide and reach our arms through the legs. And this is exactly the same, but you're doing it lying on your back, and then you'll do it balancing on your hands. And some of the lying down versions are even harder because they're working more on your core. But we're creating shapes in the body, and sometimes it's cool and fun to play with. We've just got to be mindful about the weight on the neck, and that's kind of the discussion I wanted to have today. Does that make sense? Any questions? You all tired now? Okay, so I want to show you one of the best poses in the world. Okay, so have a wall handy. You're all going to do this one. I'll find it in the manual for you. Legs up the wall pose, Viparita Karani. One of the nicest poses that we'll be ending off our session with. This is still an inversion. So it counts as an inversion pose. If you don't want to do shoulder balance, you can do this pose. Okay. So the trick to getting your bum against the wall, because it's not easy, I will show you the trick and then we'll give you time to be there because it's really nice. Your bum is against the wall. Sometimes people, I don't have a bolster to show you, but sometimes you can even have a bolster cushion, one of those thick yoga pillows, and your hips could even be raised in this, which I think, I don't know if it's in the manual. Yeah, but coming into Viparita Karani, legs up the wall, it helps to come in from sideways. So I've shuffled my hips sideways to the wall. One hip is against the wall, which brings you closer to the wall. Then you can slowly shuffle onto your back, legs up, and then you might have to do a last little shuffle to bring your legs in closer, if that's okay for your hamstrings. If your hammies are a bit tight, maybe a little bit further away from the wall is more comfortable. Okay, and then when we're down there, we'll rest like this. We'll also try butterfly, Baddha Konasana. We'll try wide-legged pose, and also a little figure 4 pose. Okay, so come to line. Well, first sitting sideways against your wall. Okie dokie, and then shuffle your hips nice and close to the wall. And then slowly turn onto your back and bring your legs up the wall into Viparita Karani. And should instantly feel quite nice. Oh, Mika, your dog is so cute. All right, place your legs up the wall and just relax your feet. Bring your arms to your sides with palms facing upwards. Let your shoulders feel relaxed underneath your back. Yeah, Kirsten, you've got the bolster there. It's very nice with a little bolster in the back. Arms just wherever they feel comfortable. Relax your feet, and it should feel amazing. So just take a few breaths here. I was feeling just allowing any of the tension in your legs to almost melt away. Feeling your pelvis nice and heavy on the ground. Your back is nice and relaxed. So here you can also bring the soles of your feet together into a butterfly position, soles of feet together, knees out to the sides. You can just relax like this, or you could also gently with your hands press your thighs out a little bit, as long as that doesn't hurt your knees. And then from there, maybe you want to open your legs out to the sides. So you're lying in like a wide-legged pose. Resting your legs against the wall. And you can just allow gravity to do all the work here for you. And just relax. Relax your shoulders, relax your neck, relax your legs. The pets all love you in this pose, it looks like. All right, gently help your legs back in. It can feel a little bit intense closing. Now try figure 4 stretch. So cross your right ankle over your left thigh. You can just hold like this, but as you bend your left knee down and bend your left solar foot comes onto the wall, you'll feel quite a nice bum stretch there. Bending the left knee, left foot on the wall will increase the stretch. And the more you bend your left knee, the stronger you'll stretch. Try and keep your hips fairly straight here, so you don't let your hips swing off and your right hip lifts up towards your waist. Try and keep your pelvis level. Maybe you're guiding the right thigh back gently with your right hand. Cinchi, your bunny is so cute. All right, changing legs, slide your leg up, changing legs. And then as you bend your right knee, you'll feel that stretch coming into the left hip. So later on when we talk about lotus and things like that, this is a really awesome way to learn lotus, and we'll touch on that another weekend. And a really nice way to work lotus shapes as well, and practicing all sorts of things around lotus. And then when you're ready, you can straighten both legs up again and just rest in a comfortable position for our last few moments here. Rest your arms. If it felt good with feet in butterfly or wide or any of the other versions, feel free to take one of those. Place your arms wherever they feel comfortable. Close your eyes and just allow your body to relax and unwind.